Okay, so with that out of the way, we can start to build out the rest of the helmet. So for starters, let's just turn off clipping again. We'll bring in a circle of 24 verts. And I'm just going to go back to normal, global transforms. And that needs to be rotated on the Y, not the Z. Let's go to vert view to make it easier. And just trying to do the same thing as earlier. We just want to line this circle up just on the outer part of the side of the helmet here. And I'm just going to use my 3D cursor to scale this in, just start to get the shape a little bit better. And I'll just move it across on the Y a little bit, move it up and scale that out just a smidge. And cool, so we actually want like a vertice sitting over here because we want to connect two vertices like that, and this is very much off center from that at the moment. So we'll just change the pivot point back to the bounding box, and we're just going to rotate this just until this vertice sits roughly down here. And then we can just go ahead and delete all of the excess ones and extrude this vertice down here. Now, this looks good from the side view, but just keep in mind this is in the center of the model at the moment, so we just need to drag that out on the x-axis. And I'm just going to rotate this a bit with the 3D cursor at the top of the circle. Oops, need to select the object first. And just rotate this inwards. And just so you know, because it's a bit confusing from this angle, I know that this is going inwards because the longer edge at the front here is moving towards the reference images. And so I'm just trying to line some of these vertices up here. And I'll just do the rest manually. Actually, no, sorry, before I do the ones at the front here manually, at the back here, this is just a flat row. So we can just select these and keep the 3D cursor where it is at the top. And we can scale in to 0 on the x-axis to flatten that out. And then we can just manually go through and adjust these ones. Nice. And once again, don't need to be all too precise, just roughly do it, because then we can just go ahead and space and relax all of them to keep it looking nice. Cool. So let's fill that in, recalculate the outside. Okay, we'll flip it. And let's just check our poly count here. So we've got 10 on the inside and 12 on the outside. So I'm just going to add in 2 loops here. And space and relax those out. And then that all lines up nicely. Cool, so now we want to start to build out the extruded part here that runs up and around the back of the helmet and up and around to the top. So to make things easier for ourselves, let's grab this edge here, duplicate it, and using Alt S, we'll just scale that out to the edge. Cool. Now, the right-hand side here, or technically the left-hand side, but the right-hand side of our screen, it's a bit hard to see where the detail is here, so I'm actually going to use the left-hand side here, just to make it easier to see where the edges are of this part. And I'm just going to hide the rest of the helmet for a second, just so I can focus on this. Bring this down. And so if you recall, we kind of want to have any of these areas with a bevel. We want the vertice to overshoot those areas so that it's in line with the edges leading this way and the edges leading this way, so that when we bevel it, it nicely matches the profile that we have here. So we're going to use the same logic here. So I'm just going to drag this out to about there. I think if I move that up, it's almost in line. I'm just going to move it just a little bit more up a little bit on the Z. And you'll see that sort of comes off at a nice 45-degree angle. Well, probably more like 15 from here. So that when we start to connect all of this up, it will, actually I'm not going to relax that there, I'm just going to space that. It will bevel nicely, and we'll get that little bit of detail. Connect that up. And then, because this is all going to lead into the top, what we can do is we can select the outermost edge there. And once again, just using Alt-S, bring this up onto that edge and drag it in. Fill in all those faces, and we don't have one there for it to connect to. We do now. Cool. What's going on down here? It looks a bit funky. It's because I got smooth shading and these ones are all flat shaded. Alright, cool. So, this is how this is going to work here. So with this edge, right, what we can do is if we bevel it, and we'll just take our, actually, just want to check, what's our scale like, because that will affect. Cool, all right. So if your scale's not all at 111 for whatever reason, just go back into object mode and just go Control A and scale, because the scale will affect the bevel that we're about to do. I'm also going to, just on the note of that, I'm just going to slide this edge down a bit, just to sort of make this face and this face a bit more square. It's just going to help with the profile of this bevel, and I'm going to do this from the back just to make it easier again. So Control B to bevel, and I think we can get away with just using 3 segments there. I think that's enough, and we can just clean up a bit of the topology here, so we can just space that out. And so this is a bit of a mess, and we can fix this up. But we can come back to that, because at the moment, I just want to have a look with a subdivision surface. I'm going to mark these with 0.5 creases. I'm just going to chuck a subdiv, because I know that's an n-gon, but I don't think it's going to cause too many problems at the moment. So yeah, I can see the pinching that it's causing, but something tells me we might be able to get away with some nasty topology for a bit until we decide to come and fully fix it up. So that's still not a great solution, and by no means do I advocate for that, but yeah, okay, we can do some more work on this later. So for the time being, I'm just going to leave that as a big old n-gon, because we don't want to add too much complex topology, because we're also going to bevel this area later on, and so we'll probably have a whole lot of additional loops to be working with then and there. But anyway, back to the task at hand. Let's grab all of these ones, so just down to before the bevel starts. Turn clipping back on and drag that into the middle. And it seems like, we don't have the front part, that's why. So let's just extrude this vertice to the front. And we can extrude this one across, bring it up to match the top line here. And drag that one up as well, and I'm just going to bevel this vertice and just drag it across like so, and relax that, space it. Now this is not perfectly aligned because I didn't realise that this also sort of had a bit more depth to it than just being completely straight across, but that's okay. We can just select the middle one and use Alt-S. So these ones have all been lined up, not those back two, but just going to do this segment by segment here. Cool. And then for this, I'm wondering if doing a shear is going to be the best approach. No, probably just better rotate it on the 3D cursor there. And that to the front. And we're just going to add another loop to this. And I'm just going to use Alt-S and push it up just a little bit more just to match that silhouette on the outside. And same thing, just going to bevel that just to add in those extra 2 loops. And to just be pedantic about it, I'm going to select the top, select these edges, invert the selection, ignore those, and space and relax that. Just to clean it up. Probably didn't do an awful lot, but it's just what I seem to do quite often. And then we should have a nice shape. Just going to get rid of the crease down the middle because that will just cause problems. Yeah, that's starting to look pretty good. Bit more detail in there, a bit of pinching here, but we can clean that up over time. But yeah, we're starting to really see that shape and form come through on it. Alright, so now we sort of want to sort out the back part here. So I'm actually just going to hide the helmet that we have at the moment. And similar to earlier, we're just going to go to Vertex, select mode again, and just control and click and put a vertice at the back here. And just bring this into line, just like so. And so once again, we've got a big beveled area here, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. So we're going to completely overshoot that area. And it's a bit more of a complicated bevel just because of the angle it's at, but we can still work with that. That's fine. Bring it up a little bit more. And this area is going to get a little bit tricky, but once we do bevel this, and we'll bevel it pretty well straight away, unlike some of the other areas that we've been working on, and just because it will line up pretty nicely with that. We might have to add in some more topology, but we will sort that out. Just going to get rid of that because we'll add in another loop there. I just noticed that. And this needs to be pulled out. And along with pulling that one out, we'll just need to pull this out a bit as well. Once again, I'm just eyeballing this. I don't have a set way of knowing that the curvature is correct. Going to bevel that, space, relax. We'll actually get a better idea of whether this profile is correct once we start to add it in with the rest of the helmet shape here. And I'd say that looks pretty good because the back part sort of slopes off rather nicely. We can actually grab those ones, bring this out a little bit, and I'm just going to grab these vertices, bring that out just a smidge as well, and same with these. Yeah, that still looks alright. It's not exactly on it, but it's good enough. I'm not too concerned about that missing by just a smidge. Alright, so let's chuck this bevel in, and I'm just going to select and hide this area to make it a bit easier to see. And we'll bevel the vertice. We might actually need 4 segments on this one. Let's go with that. I'm just going to merge these vertices at center. And I'm actually just going to adjust this just a little bit, just drag that down just a touch, and bring that one down as well, because it's not actually a perfectly straight line, it would seem. If we relax that, is that sort of going to help with the profile a bit? No, I don't think it's really of much concern, it's all good. Okay. Cool, so I can see that these will go together, and because we want a support loop running through here, so we could get that one there, and if we chuck this in here, cool, alright. That works out nicely. So there's a big pole right here, but it's not on one of the edges, so it works well, and it actually redirects our topology up and around like we want it to. So that actually worked out a lot nicer than I thought it would. I thought it might be a little bit more of a struggle to sort that out, but worked out nicely. Okay, so while I'm thinking about it, let's just go ahead and add a loop into here, join this up. Just going to turn my subdiv off, and let's just go ahead and space and relax that first, just to sort of clean that area up. There's definitely some topology cleanup that we can do over here, and I think we should probably do the same for all of these ones. Actually, let's just see, what is that? Yep, so we'll do those ones to this one. Space that out. And relax that too. Cool, so that's looking pretty nice. And for the bottom section here, for this bottom edge along here, once again, we'll just use some topology that we already have, just repurpose it. So we can just use that. I think it might be a bit of a flatter edge, which it is, so let's just go scale this down on the Z. It's not going to be exact, so we can just rotate that back up a bit. And sort of roughly place that. I'm actually going to place it here. So I'm lining up the vertice at the end here, trying to line it up with where I know that should connect up. So just about there. And then you can see this isn't really lining up properly with that bottom edge. So I'm going to select all this, and I'm just going to rotate this down just a little bit using the 3D cursor as a pivot point. And does it have any extra depth? Just a little bit, but it looks to be mostly in line. I think we can probably just use our normal coordinates and just adjust the positioning of these vertices to tighten all that up a little bit more. Fill in those faces. And the spacing at the back can definitely do some work. Cool. And then I'm just trying to think, because we need another loop that's going to run down to support this. So I'm thinking we're probably going to need a really big pole in the middle there somehow. So I'm just going to bring that up. That should go there. This would go here, and then we would need a face there and a face there. Cool, that works pretty nicely, and we can definitely just space that out. Looks a little bit flat just in the middle there, and it probably would be more evident with the subdivision surface. Just trying to show you guys what I can see. There's just a bit of a divot just in the middle here. So just around here, you'll just notice this is very pedantic, but you just notice that the reflection starts to warp a bit. It's not nice and smooth. It sort of, see, runs nice and smooth, and it sort of starts to stop and hold a bit. And then it sort of grapples onto the rest of the edge. So I can just tell that there's a little bit of flatness in there, and it's not really following the curvature the way it should. So just going to try to fix this. And this is not amazingly important either. It's a very, very minute detail that you probably won't even really see once it's all textured and you've got all the grunge and roughness all over it. But just sort of noticed it, and I'm just gonna see if I can clean it up. It's probably still a little bit flat. There's probably some other. I think this is probably jutting out a bit as well, but. Yeah, that looks better. Still there for sure, but oh, it's okay. It's not going to ruin the project. Actually, doing that relaxed probably just undid my work. Okay, and then I'm just going to even out distribution of these. Alright, nice. And just since we've started to mark all these creases, I'll just mark these ones up as well. Alright, so now we can start to address the solidifying bit in the middle here, so to speak. So we're not really going to actually solidify it. But if we do an extrusion, and just use Alt-S, we can just bring it in, but I want to don't want to bring it in as I'm doing it. Okay, maybe just using a scale might be the way to go. Okay, I'll just scale it instead of using Alt-S. And then I'm just going to grab this and move it down. Just using G and eyeballing that. Just make some tweaks. And I'm just going to use an edge slide to try to flatten this out. And just to point out something here, you'll see that there's like a big divot that's missing from the edge here. We're going to model it as a perfect edge, as if this thing has taken no battle damage. I know how they've done the sculpting on the high poly mesh and then modeled it back into the low poly and baked all that down. I can teach you guys how to do that. I'll just have to wait and see what the reception is like for this tutorial, and I'll see whether there's some demand for wanting to learn how to do that, because I did do something very similar for my Mark 6 mod back in, what was that, 2022 that I did that one. So if people want to know how to do that, I can definitely spend the time to teach you all that as well. Yeah, let's just flatten this one out as well. Cool, and this isn't quite in the right spot. It's actually got like a bit of curve to it almost, and this isn't sitting in the right spot, so it needs to come down just a little bit more and be pushed in just a touch. And with doing that, we can probably space this out and relax it. And that just makes the transition into that curve a little bit nicer. Cool. Now, for how far we should push that in, I've got no idea. In all honesty, there's not really a good point of reference for that, is there? So I guess we'll just eyeball it. We'll just grab the inside here, and I want to use the global and just push this in on the X. And I'm just going to go scale X 0, just so it's nice and flat inside. I think that should be far enough in. It's not going to be too important anyhow, we're not ever going to see it. So, nice, this is looking pretty good. It's still got a fair bit to go, but it's certainly taking shape. So, now that we've got most of that all laid out, I'm just thinking, I know that technically this area is beveled, but for the sake of brevity, I think we can get away with just using a crease there. Don't worry, we still will address this. I'm kind of mulling it over in my head as to how the best way to resolve it is. Okay, what should we do next? Save it, that's important. Okay, let's build the side bit here.